Okay, so we've covered why you should not use your card for cash equivalent, why you should have a little bit of airline currency at least, and now we're going to talk about why you're going to want lots of transferable currencies. But in order to get lots of transferable currencies, the natural question is going to be what cards have transferable currency. So this is a short list. There are more than this. You'll want to check with your bank before applying to make sure that they actually come in the form of points instead of cash, because there's an outsized value with those kinds of things. And I'll tell you in a future episode which cards I have and why I have them. But for now, which cards should you have? It totally depends on where you want to go and what airlines fly there. So this is a list that we have put together to help you kind of reference what cards transfer to which partners. And it's a little bit complicated, so it looks like this. If you go to freeyourtravel.com/transfer partners, you can search it there. It's much easier to look at than looking at a PDF. But this is all the different transfer partners that you can use, and there's different pros and cons to each different one. But the beauty of having a transferable currency is that you're flexible. So there's so many good deals out there, really. It's hard to encapsulate that all into one document, but I'm going to go over, again, just kind of the sweet spots that I'm aware of throughout this course and let you have the tools so that you can find what you need for your specific situation, because everybody's circumstances are different. What if the airline that I like isn't on the list? Well, that's a great question, but there is a workaround. So for example, unfortunately, right now, American Airlines AA Advantage or A Advantage program does not you cannot transfer miles from a transferable currency to American Airlines at the moment. Very sad. But American Airlines is part of the One World Alliance. And so though you cannot transfer to American, you can transfer to Alaska, British Airways, Cathay Pacific, Finnair, Iberia, Malaysia, Qantas, or Qatar, depending on your circumstances. And all of them have different rates for different flights. So if I can book any flight I find on AA.com with their partners, unfortunately, no. This is where things get complicated, but there are ways to still find great value. So for example, here is a flight that I found on AmericanAirlines.com. This goes from New York to Spain. It's an overnight flight, and you can see that they're charging 27,000 miles in economy and 62,000 miles in business. You can actually book the exact same flight on Qantas, which is a partner of American Airlines in the One World Alliance, for less miles. Now you do have to pay more taxes and fees. So American's deal is probably better, but if you don't have American miles, you're not locked out of booking American Airlines flights just because you don't have their specific program. Another example, booking via British Airways. Cheaper in economy, but again, taxes and fees. Same price in business, but $1,000 of taxes and fees. Now, work around here. British Airways uses a point system called Avios. Avios can transfer to Qatar Airways, they can transfer to Iberia, they can transfer to Aer Lingus, and they can transfer to Finnair. So if you transfer your points to Qatar Airways, then you can book this flight for the exact same amount of points as you could book it with British Airways, but with $800 less in taxes and fees. So there's lots of weird workarounds with all this kind of stuff, and you just kind of have to figure out, okay, I like going here, I want to bring this many people, here's who generally has these kinds of deals, and here's who offers the best rate for that. Another example would be United Mileage Plus. So they're part of the Star Alliance, my favorite alliance, and here are all the different partners that you can transfer to with transferable currencies. Now, some of these are totally not valuable, like you're almost never going to want to transfer your miles to Thai Airways. You're probably not going to want to transfer to Singapore except in a few cases, and Eva Air, I've never transferred to them. There may be some sweet spots there, but the others I have transferred to and have used. So here's an example, Los Angeles to Maui. It's 16,700 miles on United, and that's if you have United points. Except you can book the exact same flight with Avianca Life Miles, which transfer from American Express and a host of other partners, and Aeroplan, which transfer from American Express and a host of other partners, for less miles. Now there are a little bit more taxes and fees. I think Life Miles is charging $17, and Aeroplan is charging 62 Canadian dollars. So depending on the currency exchange rate, that can be good or bad. Here's another example: Chicago to Tokyo on United, 55,000 in economy, 100,000 in business. You can book the same flight on Aeroplan for 50,000 miles in economy, a little bit less, or 75,000 miles in business. Now, not all of United's flights are going to be available like this, but the ones that they do release to partners are going to be available. So if you just want to fly United, it is good to have United miles, because obviously there's going to be flights that they don't release to their partners and they're like, hey, we want only our people to be able to use these flights. But in certain cases, you can actually fly United and use Aeroplan points and get better deals than you would if you booked with United, even though you're still flying a United plane. Kind of a weird world, this points thing, I know. Chicago to Tokyo on United via LifeMiles. They do not have availability in business. It may be worth a call to LifeMiles and ask them, hey, I'm not seeing this on your website. Frequently, airlines do not show availability on their website, but they do have it over the phone. They can see it, and you can show them, hey, I see this on United, I see it on Air Canada, I see it on other partners. Like, why are you not showing this flight? Sometimes they will not sell specifically to that airline. They will be like, hey, we only sold this flight to Aeroplan, or we only sold this flight to ANA or whatever. But oftentimes, like, their websites are just not very good, because you will find that airlines do not optimize their systems to give people lots of information about free flights. Ironically enough, they want you to pay cash. So these programs are great, and they make a lot of money off of them, but you can use them to your advantage. Okay, now let's talk Delta Sky Miles. You may hear my bias a little bit throughout this course. I do really like Delta, but unfortunately their Sky Miles program over the last few years has continued to be devalued to a point where my love for Delta has diminished, and I will be losing my elite status with them very soon. But there are some good ways to book Delta flights, even if you do not have Delta status. Here's the SkyTeam Alliance. You can book with Aeromexico, Air France, Delta, KLM, or Virgin Atlantic through transferable currencies, and they all have different access to different seats based on the airlines. This is a flight from Los Angeles to Paris on Air France via Delta. So if you were to book this flight on delta.com, it would cost you 88,000 miles one way in economy. If you were to book this exact same flight via Air France, which you can do if you have certain points that will transfer to Air France, you can get the exact same flight for, let's see, what is that? Less than a third, I think. Yeah, so 26,000 miles. There may be some tax and fees, but totally worth it, because you're saving 60,000 miles, 62,000 miles. And to make matters even more interesting, you can book this flight on Virgin Atlantic for 15,000 miles in economy with $157 in taxes and fees. So definitely worth transferring your points to Virgin Atlantic instead of keeping your points with Delta. And now I'll give you a more extreme example of Delta. So if you were to book this flight on Delta, in Delta One, it would cost you 375,000 miles to go from Atlanta to Amsterdam overnight. If, however, you were to transfer your miles to Air France, you could book the exact same flight for 88,000 miles. And one step further, if you were to transfer your miles to Virgin Atlantic, you could book the exact same flight for 57,500 miles. Now, there's a lot of taxes and fees here. This is $1,000 of taxes and fees. Now, compared to the cash price of a business class ticket, this may be worth it, depending on how many miles you have and how much you value those. But, you know, Air France is charging 88,000 miles plus $32 in taxes and fees. So a lot of opportunity here. You just have to know how to find these flights, and I'll cover that in future lessons. For now, just know that there are lots of deals out there to be had, and you should have currency that can transfer to many different airlines, because if you only have Delta cards, you will only have Delta miles. And in this case, you will only be able to book the flight for 375,000 miles. I was talking to somebody on the plane, and he was like, yeah, I spent 1 million points to fly my family to Tokyo and back. I was like, well, why did you do that? Because it was 1 million points each. Because there's so many ways that you can do it for less than 1 million points. if you have a American Express card, you can transfer to Delta if you want to pay 375,000 miles, which you probably don't. But you can also transfer to Virgin Atlantic or Air France and book the flights for a whole lot less. One other partner I want to highlight that we will talk more about later, but I think is a really cool way to think about miles, and it's Air Canada, Aeroplan program. Air Canada's, they all kind of have different names. Delta Sky Miles, United Mileage Plus. Air Canada calls theirs Aeroplan. What's cool about Aeroplan is that they transfer to Star Alliance partners, but they also have 27 other partners that you can book with. So this is common actually with airlines. You're not just getting their alliances, but they have other partners that maybe they work with because they only fly to Europe and they want to partner within Europe that can go to these small little airports. Or they only fly to Tokyo and they want to partner with Japan Airlines because they fly all over Japan. So Air Canada is just a great example of partnering with so many different airlines, including Emirates, including Etihad Airways, including Cathay Pacific, Gulf Air, all these great airlines that you can fly that you may not have points with. Obviously, you probably don't have a card that gets you points with Sun Express or Vistara in India, but you can actually book their program with Air Canada. So all of these cards transfer to Aeroplan, and then you can book 51 different airlines by transferring to Aeroplan. So that is why you should have lots of transferable currency, whether that's American Express or Chase or Capital One or Bilt or Citi or Wells Fargo. Don't really recommend Wells Fargo because it doesn't transfer to anybody that you can't get with any other partners. But the rest do have lots of advantages.